My neighbor secretly filmed me, framed me as a criminal, and sent the police to ruin my life. So I finally reported her and kicked her out of the neighborhood. But now she's free, asking if we can talk. When I moved from the Upper East Side of Manhattan to a poorer area of Brooklyn, I was hoping to get away from the rich people. You know, the ones who think you're gross for wearing off-brand Lululemon and skipping your Pilates class. And at first, it was worth it. Everyone was incredibly friendly, the kind of people who offer to watch your cat the moment you mention you're going on vacation. I finally felt at peace until I met Elena. Yes, her name really was Elena. Pearl necklace, blonde hair, and the constant scent of vanilla and coconut. I had the misfortune of having her as a neighbor. The first time I met her was when I brought a plate of homemade cookies over to her house. "Hi, my name is Isabella." I was immediately interrupted by her grabbing the cookie and holding it inches from her face. She then squinted her eyes and her face contorted like she had bitten into a lemon or something. It had been 3 minutes. "I am not fucking eating that," she said before placing the cookie on the plate and closing the door in my face. I swear I thought she was playing a prank on me, but after that, we never spoke again. Not directly, at least because she still made a point of criticizing everything. She started targeting me all over. In just 3 weeks, she called animal control after my dog barked for 10 minutes at 3 a.m. She poured bleach all over my front yard because the weeds were too tall. And when I was playing music inside the house at 7 p.m. on a Friday, she knocked on my door and handed me a noise complaint she had typed up herself. Sigh. And I'm the youngest, so I value peace more than defending myself, which meant I always gave in to her demands. Luckily, it wasn't long before she started attacking the entire town, and they weren't nearly as passive as I was. So when she started throwing out Amazon packages because they were taking too long to pick them up, or trying to rip the electrical wires off those brown wooden poles so the Wi-Fi could be knocked out so we could all reconnect, they weren't having it. They would hold mass yard sales in her front yard every Saturday morning for weeks on end, and she wouldn't wake up until they started. So instead of shutting everything down and looking like a beach, she was forced to let it happen. After a few weeks of this, she stopped being the neighborhood terrorist and went back to harassing me, or more specifically, my boutique. Mind you, I worked at a company 4 out of 7 days a week, and I'm a pretty demanding girl. Shopping sprees, weekly therapy sessions, impulsive vacations, you know the drill. So, in order to live the lifestyle I want, I need to run a nail and beauty salon. I've been running the salon for 3 years, and I use Instagram to promote it. Licensing has never been an issue, since most of my clients come from referrals. And I've never had any complaints about hygiene or anything like that. But of course, Elena thought otherwise. The way she saw it, I was destroying the integrity of the neighborhood community, whatever that means. So when she asked me to close my business and I refused, she went all out. But at first it was subtle. Clients started canceling the same day they booked their appointments. People stopped posting their results on their Instagram stories. But when that didn't stop me from closing my business, she created a Facebook group for all the moms, including me. It was one of those groups that only the admin can join. She sent me photos of the inside of my house that had clearly been taken without my knowledge, right outside my window. It was during spring cleaning, so my entire kitchen was a mess from all the rearranging. Elena told everyone that I was no different from a drug ring and that I needed to be stopped. I expected all the moms to leave the group and send me messages of support, but instead, they all removed me from their friends list. And that same week, I couldn't get any bookings. Right before that, my business was printing money. So much, so that I was about to quit my corporate job. So it hit me hard. I was about to knock on her door and tell her what I thought when I noticed something. Through her window, I saw her adjusting an ankle monitor. Interesting. Naturally, like any respectful neighbor, I did a little investigating. Turns out she was on probation for possession of a substance. LOL. And one of the conditions was not to disturb the community. I gathered every photo and video I had ever taken of her, every screenshot I could get my hands on. And without missing a beat, I sent them all to her probation officer, LOL. Apparently, she was such a repeat offender that she ended up being a repeat offender within a few weeks, with a longer sentence than ever before. But what I didn't expect was that the prisons were overcrowded and she was released on good behavior after only 4 weeks in the cell. I didn't think much of it at first, I figured maybe prison had changed her, or at least scared her enough to leave me alone. For the first few days after she got back, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Elena didn't complain about noise or throwaway packages. She didn't even give me dirty looks when I walked past her house. I should have known something was wrong. One morning, I went to check my mail and found my mailbox completely glued shut. I had to call a locksmith to open it. The next day, someone anonymously reported my store for toxic fumes. A health inspector showed up unannounced while I was doing a customer's nails. He didn't find anything wrong, but it was embarrassing and unprofessional. Then I found a note hidden under my door. It just said TikTok in that creepy magazine cutout letter style. I knew it was Elena, but I couldn't prove it. She was being cautious this time. I installed a cheap security camera on my front door, but that didn't seem to deter her. The weird incidents kept happening. My trash cans would tip over. My doorbell would ring at 3 a.m. with no one there. Little annoying things, but not exactly harassment. I could report them. Then I noticed one of my regular clients posted a selfie at another salon with the caption, "Back with my old girlfriend." Much better. Anyway, I messaged her to ask if everything was okay, and her response gave me chills. "I didn't know you were filming us without consent." I had no idea what she was talking about. I never filmed my clients without permission. I would occasionally do Instagram lives with clients who were okay with it, but that was it. When I asked for clarification, she sent me a link to a post in a local Facebook group. Someone had taken clips of my Instagram lives, heavily edited them, and started a rumor that I secretly recorded all my clients. The post received dozens of comments from people saying they would never come back to my salon. Some even threatened to report me. And although the account that posted it was anonymous, I knew exactly who was behind it. Elena had found a way to get revenge without directly violating the terms of her probation. She was destroying my reputation and my business from the shadows, and there wasn't much I could do about it. One morning, I woke up to find my apartment egged all over the windows and doors. While I was cleaning, I noticed that my internet wasn't working. When I called my provider, they said someone had called and canceled my service. I had to pay a reconnection fee and wait 2 days to get back online. That same week, my building's building manager started sending me notices about noise complaints and lease violations that had never been an issue before. When I asked who had complained, he said only that it was concerned neighbors, but he wouldn't name them. I knew it was all Elena's fault, but I had no way to prove it. She was being careful to stay within the legal boundaries of harassment. No direct threats, no confrontations, just this constant, superficial sabotage that was slowly driving me crazy. I decided I needed more proof, so I installed another security camera. This one was hidden in a planter near the door to my salon. The next day, she caught someone in a sweatshirt pouring something into my window box. The footage wasn't clear enough to identify the person, but the next morning, I found my front window cracked and 2 clients had missed their appointments. I was getting desperate. This was more than just a little neighborhood drama. Elena was systematically destroying everything I had built. I called the police about the storefront, but they basically ignored it as minor vandalism and said they'd keep an eye on it. Yeah, super helpful. The officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a coffee-stained uniform, barely glanced at the jagged hole in my storefront window before scribbling something on his notepad. His indifference felt like another punch in the gut after everything I'd been through. The next morning, my landlord texted me to say he needed to do a surprise inspection of my apartment. Apparently, someone on the block had filed a formal complaint about my salon's illegal dumping of hazardous waste. I nearly had a panic attack right then and there. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to put my phone down on the kitchen counter and take several deep breaths. I keep my place spotless, especially the salon area. But I knew these weren't actual violations. This was Elena trying to evict me. I spent the entire day cleaning everything, even though it was already clean. I scrubbed the baseboards with a toothbrush, rearranged my cleaning supplies 3 times, and even cleaned behind the refrigerator, a task I've been avoiding since I moved in. The strong smell of cleaning products made my eyes water, but I couldn't stop. When my landlord showed up, he looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. He was a decent guy, balding, always dressed in the same beige sweater, and always apologizing for raising the rent. He looked around half-heartedly, and said everything looked fine. Before he left, he mentioned that the complaint had included photos of chemical containers being improperly disposed of. I showed him my professional nail product disposal system, and he seemed pleased, but the whole situation left me feeling violated. That night, I discovered that someone had set up a fake email account using my boutique's name and was posting fake customer complaints to local forums and even Yelp. The reviews claimed that I had burned people's scalps with hair dye or caused fungal infections with dirty nail tools. One particularly graphic review described in horrifying detail how I had allegedly left a woman with chemical burns after a facial. It was all nonsense, but the damage had been done. My phone was dead for days. No new bookings. My bank account dwindled as I continued to pay rent on my apartment and the small commercial space I had converted into my boutique. I was at my lowest point, seriously considering moving again, when I got a text from Sophia, my best friend from high school. We had lost touch over the years, but she had recently moved to Brooklyn for a new job and wanted to reconnect. It felt like the universe was finally giving me a chance. I remembered how we used to practice doing each other's hair during sleepovers, how she was the first person to tell me I had a natural talent for it. We met for coffee at a small cafe 3 blocks from my apartment. The place was cramped but cozy, with mismatched furniture and local artwork covering the walls. It was like no time had passed. Sophia was still the same, loud, loyal, and much more confrontational than I was. Her dark, curly hair was now streaked with purple, and she wore the same confident smile I remembered from our teenage years. When I told her about Elena, she was furious. She immediately booked an appointment to get highlights at my salon, saying she wanted to support my business. "That woman sounds like a complete psychopath," she said, stirring her latte vigorously. "And you're letting her get the better of you?" I sighed, running my finger around the rim of my coffee cup. "It's complicated. I've tried to confront her before, and it only made things worse." During the appointment, as I was straightening her hair, Sophia confessed something strange. "But I got a weird message on Instagram before I came here. Someone claiming to be your former client warned me to stay away from your salon. Said you burned her scalp and refused to pay her compensation." My stomach lurched, and I nearly dropped the foil in my hand. The room suddenly felt colder, and I could feel sweat forming on my palms despite the chill. "Did they say who they were?" "No. Just a blank profile with the username TruthTeller718. I ignored it because it seemed suspicious, but I thought you should know." After the consultation, Sophia and I spent hours tracking down the fake accounts and posts. My small living room had become a command center, with laptops open on every surface and empty takeout containers piling up as the night wore on. We traced the disposable Instagram page to an IP address that matched Elena's home. Not exactly court-admissible evidence, but enough to make us certain it was her. "We need to fight back," Sophia said, her new locks glistening under the lights of my salon as she paced my living room. "You can't just let her destroy your life like this." I hesitated, nervously twirling a strand of hair around my finger. "Last time I fought back, she got arrested and came back even worse." "Then we need to be smarter this time," Sophia insisted, pausing to look me straight in the eye. "Document everything. Build a case so solid she can't get away with it." So that's what we did. I invested in better security cameras, with clearer night vision and better angles. I discreetly installed them throughout my apartment and living room, making sure they covered every possible approach. I began keeping a detailed log of every incident, no matter how small. When Elena left a dead plant on my doorstep the next day, fully grown, we filmed her. The footage showed her smiling as she placed the wilted fern near my door, pausing for a moment to admire her work before she left. When I received another anonymous complaint about loud music in my apartment while I was literally on a trip to visit my parents, we had the timestamp footage to prove it was false. But Elena was crafty. She always kept herself far enough away to avoid direct legal trouble. She wore hoodies to do anything near my cameras. Her face was partially obscured, but her distinctive demeanor and mannerisms were still recognizable to anyone who knew her. She used public computers at the library to post her fake reviews, taking care never to use her own devices. She never directly threatened me. Everything was implicit or anonymous, creating a web of harassment that was hard to prove in any single case. One day, I came home to find a young woman standing in the hallway outside my apartment. She had wavy blonde hair and was dressed in a bohemian look that looked effortless. She introduced herself as Valentina, my new nex. She seemed super nice, offering me homemade cookies wrapped in cellophane with a ribbon and complimenting my hair. She mentioned that she had seen my Instagram and was eager to help out at the store since she was unemployed. I was desperate for help since customers were slowly coming back. So I gave her my number and asked her to text me if she was serious. There was something off about her, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Maybe I was just paranoid after everything that happened with Elena. There was an eagerness in her eyes that clashed with her casual demeanor, as if she were trying too hard to appear relaxed. A few days later, Sophia texted me a photo. It showed Valentina leaving Elena's house late at night, looking anxiously over her shoulder as she closed the front door. My blood ran cold. Elena had planted a mole right next to me. The realization made me sick. I invited this woman over to my home, shared details about my business, and even considered hiring her. I decided to test Valentina's loyalty. When she came over for coffee to discuss the possibility of working together, I casually mentioned that a local reality TV star had scheduled a full day of services for the following week. This was completely made up. I didn't even have a specific celebrity in mind. I just wanted to see what would happen. I watched her closely as she spoke, noticing how her eyes widened slightly and how she asked several follow-up questions about what services the star had scheduled and when they would take place. 2 days later, an anonymous post appeared on the neighborhood gossip forum. Isabella from that illegal salon is lying about celebrity clients to attract clients. She's telling everyone the same words I used with Valentina to make her seem legitimate. Don't fall for it. The post was exactly what I had told Valentina. No one else could have leaked it. Finally, I had proof of Elena's network of contacts. The betrayal stung. Even though I had been suspicious all along, I wanted so badly to believe that someone in the neighborhood was genuinely interested in becoming friends with me. Instead of confronting Valentina privately, I decided to take Sophia's advice and deal with the situation publicly. The neighborhood was having a summer party that weekend, and I knew Valentina and Elena would be there. The event was held in the community garden, with lights strung from the trees and folding tables covered with communal food. I spent the first hour chatting nervously, waiting for the right moment. During a lull in the conversation, I pulled out my phone and said, "Hey, has anyone seen this weird post about my salon?" I read the gossip forum post out loud, then looked directly at Valentina and smiled. Funny how that's exactly the story I told just one person in a private conversation at my apartment. The crowd fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Valentina, whose face was flushed with passion. She mumbled something about needing to leave and practically ran off, knocking over a glass of lemonade in her haste. Elena, who was standing by the punch bowl in a flowery dress that seemed a bit too cheerful for her personality, seemed to want to discourage me with her gaze. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped her plastic cup, and for a moment, I thought she was going to come running over and confront me. Instead, she slipped away silently, disappearing into the crowd. After that, Valentina never contacted me again. I later learned that she had moved out within a week, leaving behind the rent she had already paid for the month. Elena had lost her inner source, but it only made her more desperate and dangerous. I felt a momentary triumph that quickly gave way to anxiety about what would come next. The following Tuesday, I was in the middle of giving a client a manicure when there was a knock on my door. The sound made both my client and I jump. I opened the door to find 2 people from the Child Protection Agency standing there, their expression serious. A woman with a clipboard and a man with a badge, both of them looking formal and unimpressed. They explained that they had received an anonymous tip about a chemically hazardous environment that was threatening children near my salon. My heart was pounding as I let them in, apologizing to my client, who looked confused and uncomfortable. I showed them all the products I used, explained my ventilation system, and provided all my permits and documentation. I explained my disposal procedures to them, showing them the special containers I used for chemical waste. They seemed pleased and even a little annoyed by what was clearly a false report. Before I left, one of them, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair, gave me a knowing look. "Be careful of the enemies you make," she said calmly. "This kind of vindictive reporting wastes our time and resources when there are children who really need our help." That night, I couldn't sleep. Elena had escalated the situation and involved government agencies. What would come next? Would she call the IRS, Immigration and Customs? I felt like I was constantly waiting for the next attack, and it was exhausting. I tossed and turned, checking my phone every few minutes, jumping at every sound from the hallway. The constant vigilance was wearing me down physically and emotionally. The next morning, I ran into Roberto, my elderly neighbor who had offered to water my plants when I first moved in. He was a retired professor, wearing sunglasses and a collection of cardigans for every occasion. He noticed that I looked stressed and invited me over for tea. His apartment was cluttered but cozy, filled with books and antique furniture. As we chatted, he mentioned that Elena had reported him for having an ugly bird feeder in the backyard. "She's been doing this for years," he said, shaking his head as he poured hot water into delicate china cups. "Before you moved in, she kicked out the last 3 tenants in your apartment in just a few months." That's when I had an idea. "Robert, do you know anyone else in the neighborhood who's had problems with Elena?" He laughed, a warm, rumbling sound that made his shoulders shake. "Honey, who hasn't?" Over the next few days, I began contacting neighbors, asking about their experiences with Elena. The stories started pouring in like a dam had broken. She reported a family for their children playing too loudly in the backyard. The kids were now afraid to play outside. She complained that an elderly couple's medical transport vehicle parked incorrectly when picking them up for appointments, causing them to miss crucial doctor's appointments. She even tried to get a local teacher fired by sending anonymous emails to his school, claiming he was drunk in public. He'd been drinking root beer at a school fundraiser. As people shared their stories, I realized something important. Elena was documenting everything. She recorded when people took out the trash too early, when dogs barked, when Amazon deliveries were left on porches. She took photos and videos to use as evidence in her complaints. Her home was essentially a surveillance center for the entire block, an idea that chilled me. 2 people could play that game. I created a shared digital folder and asked everyone to contribute their documents about Elena's harassment. Photos, videos, emails, text messages, whatever they had. Within days, the folder was filled with evidence spanning years of Elena's reign of terror. There were screenshots of false reports, videos of her breaking into properties, emails from various agencies confirming that they had received complaints about her. The volume was staggering. Elena had essentially made harassment her full-time job. I compiled it all into a comprehensive dossier and sent it to the head of our neighborhood homeowners association, along with a formal request for action. I made sure to send a copy to Elena's probation officer as well, although I didn't explicitly ask for her to be arrested again. I just wanted the harassment to stop. I spent hours organizing the evidence, creating a timeline that showed the escalating pattern of behavior, and writing a firm but professional cover letter. The Homeowners Association board reviewed it all and called an emergency meeting within a few days, much faster than I expected for a homeowners association. I later learned that several members of the board had been victims of Elena's harassment and had been looking for a way to resolve the issue for years. They just needed someone to take the lead and gather all the evidence in one place. The Homeowners Association called an emergency closed-door meeting. I was invited to present my evidence, and to my surprise, so were about 15 other neighbors. One by one, we told our stories. The young mother whose children were afraid to play outside. The elderly couple who missed doctor's appointments. The teacher who almost lost his job. Elena sat in a corner, her face getting redder by the minute, occasionally trying to intervene with denials that were quickly silenced. When it was her turn to speak, part 2 continues.